from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and airing on WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk where facts matter. Welcome to The Gailey Show, the only daily LGBTQ radio news and talk show in the United States. I am your host, John Parker. It is Friday, and we end our week talking about culture and entertainment because LGBTQ artists, writers, filmmakers, and theater makers are one of the most censored groups in America today, and it's not getting any better. So every week we want to lift up authors and theater makers, artists, musicians for you to read, watch, listen to, and attend if you're in Minneapolis and or Chicago. What is on the show today? In the second half hour, Bill Hulseman joins us to discuss his new book, 6 to Carry the Casket and 1 to Say the Mass, Reflections on Life, Identity, and Moving Forward. But up first, Adib Khorram is a queer Iranian-American author of fiction for all ages. His debut young adult novel, Darius the Great is Not Okay, earned the W.C. Morris Debut Award, the Asian Pacific American Award for Young Adult Literature, a Boston Globe Horn Book Honor, and was named one of Time Magazine's 100 Greatest YA Novels of All Time. His debut novel for adults, I'll Have What He's Having, was an instant USA Today bestseller. His newest novel, It Had to Be Him, came out in September. Adib, welcome back to The Gailey Show.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be back here.
We were talking before we started the show that the last time we talked, I think, was in May, early spring of 2024, when there was still hope for the world. And,
some version of the before times.
Some version of the before times. I feel like there used to be before COVID, and now there's before November 2024 at this
there
point.
Really is.
But thankfully, you've come along and given us an absolutely delightful book that deals with some second chance romance. So tell us what folks can expect when they turn to page 1 of It Had to Be Him.
It Had to Be Him is the story of Ramin Yazdani, who's a queer Iranian-American millennial who is getting ready to propose to his boyfriend of 2 years, Todd, and decides to do it publicly because why not, and is turned down for being boring in a scene reminiscent of course, the iconic early 2000s film Legally Blonde, which is, as we all know, an important part of queer culture. Yes. So as one does when you've been publicly humiliated and called boring, Ramin goes home, gets drunk with his friends, and books a trip to Italy. And his very first day there, after his bags end up going to Amsterdam instead of Milan, he gets new clothes, goes to a gelateria, gets some gelato, and runs into Noah Bartlett, who was his high school crush that he hasn't seen in 20 years. Noah is there with his ex-wife and son as they try to figure out if their son will stay in America with Noah or move to Italy with his mom, Angela, to take over her grandparents' wine store. And Noah is obviously divorced and actually bisexual, and also maybe had a little crush on Ramin back in high school too. So over the course of their magical Italian getaway, they reconnect and fall in love and have sort of a second chance at a first chance, and drink a lot of wine, eat a lot of Italian food, and bone a lot along the way. I think I'm allowed to say bone, right? That's not going to run afoul of the FCC.
I hope so.
If it does, I apologize to the FCC.
Okay, second chance romance, but also let's talk about Italy. Why Italy?
Yes.
I say that now. Pasta. I say that as a French Armenian American citizen, and so with a still nursing old wounds of the 2006 World Cup, where Italy beat France, and I have thoughts and feelings still this many decades later. So tell us, why Italy for you?
As someone who doesn't care about soccer/football, I do not care who's winning what cups anywhere, as long as they're wearing them, because it's very important to protect yourself. I have always loved Italian food. I think being Iranian, I connect with the sort of the Mediterranean culture of Italy, even though it's different. It's, we kind of look the same, except when we go bald like I do. And I love Italian food and I love Italian wine. And when I myself back in 2021 got drunk and was like, surely the pandemic will be over, I booked an 8-week trip to Italy because the place I found was like 50% off if you book more than 4 weeks. So I was like, that means 8 weeks for the price of 4. I'd be losing money if I didn't take advantage of this deal. I think I've always wanted to visit Italy. I wouldn't say I'm a history nerd, but I really do like history, and Italy has a lot of UNESCO World Heritage sites. But again, and I cannot stress this enough, pasta. I really love pasta. I could eat pasta every day of my life and be a happy man. And I love Italian wine a great deal, and so it just sort of felt like the right place. Later, after getting to Italy, I was like, oh, wait a minute, I don't think they allow gay marriage here. So that was a disappointment. But there's still a thriving queer community in Italy nonetheless. And Milan, where I stayed and where the book is set, is in many ways like the queer capital of Italy.
Mm-hmm.
So it felt right. Also, I mean, I do love France. I do love the French people. I do not think French food is as good as Italian food. And I'll just put that out there right now.
Well, Adib, it was great seeing you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye, listeners.
I'm going to set aside the international incident that you just set off in my brain.
French bread is better, though.
Well, obviously. Okay, I gotta focus. This is something completely off track here, but when I saw the last name Bartlett, anything to do with the West Wing? Because the president is President Bartlett in the West Wing, and I was like, oh, is this a nod to a particular political show? Probably isn't, but I was every time we read it, I kept thinking of that, which I was like, okay.
That's funny. Kansas City has lots of Italians and lots of Irish Catholic people, and so I went to school with lots of people named Bartlett or some variation of that.
We are talking with Adib Khorram, author of the new novel, It Had to Be Him. Talk to us about, there's so much bi-erasure in the world, and particularly in literature. So talk to us about tackling that in your novel and wanting to give representation there.
Yeah, Noah is bisexual. He grew up in Kansas City, Missouri, like I did. And I don't know if anyone remembers sort of the late 90s and early 2000s, what it felt like to be queer back then. It wasn't super great. Mm-hmm. Slurs got thrown around the high school hallways. And certainly if you grew up in perhaps a conservative evangelical household, there were certain expectations placed on you. And Noah struggled under those. So he didn't come out as bisexual until he was in his 20s and out of his parents' house and making his living at a Hollister in a mall because, he was young and in shape. And listen, that's what the hot white boys did in Kansas City in the early 2000s. Like they graduated high school and they went to go work at Hollister or American Eagle. Not American Eagle, Abercrombie. There we are, Abercrombie. I was like, what's the one with the sex scandals? Abercrombie. There was a Netflix documentary about that.
Oh,
yeah, about the creepiness and B, the racism at Abercrombie and Fitch, which I think they fired the guy who was doing all that.
Yeesh.
I don't remember. I watched the documentary years ago. But yeah, so Noah's bisexual, but most of his all of his sustained relationships have been with women. And Ramin is really his first time being in a relationship with a man, but he has been aware of his attraction and has had encounters with men before, but never a full-on relationship. And I don't know that I deliberately set out to tell a story of an out bisexual getting to experience things for the first time. I think I was much more interested in just giving Noah the fullness of his humanity, and he just happened to be bisexual and also happened to be embarking on his first sustained relationship with a man. And I think what intrigues me about Noah is that everything about him on paper would lead you to believe him to be one way. He is a blue-collar worker. He grew up in a conservative household. He's conventionally attractive and white, and yet as you get to know him and as Ramin gets to know him, he's calm and nurturing. He's a really good dad, and he is very queer. And I think it was really fun to remind people that queer people come in all types. And I feel like we talk about bi erasure quite a bit, and it is a problem. And I also find a lot of like blue collar erasure in queer life. Like queer people are expected to have like artsy jobs, and I say this as a queer person with an artsy job. But like,
Guilty.
I know, right? But like, queer people are out there building houses too,
Yes.
and I think it's really important to remember how beautiful and vibrant our community is.
Mm-hmm. You've also have him in a very unique situation where the reason why he's in Italy is that his ex-wife is moving there, and their son is deciding, do I live in Italy? Do I live in Kansas City? And it was an interesting interplay. I thought that was an interesting conflict to really bring out Noah and who he is, and the illuminating also the conflicts and the potentialities of the relationships with Ramin.
Yeah, I think, the reality of dating when you're in your 30s or 40s is a lot of potential partners have children, and that's, I think, always something to navigate. Also, divorce is a fact of life for a lot of people, and navigating that with a child is really tough. Even though this book is not written for young people, I do write a lot of books for young people, and I think a lot about the needs of young people as well, and I think it's really important. You have to make decisions for children at the end of the day. Like, you as an adult are responsible for them and their well-being, both physical and emotional. But that doesn't mean they don't deserve agency and they don't deserve opinions. And I think it was really important for Noah to get to do that with his son, Jake.
I have to fit in a break here. We're going to have more with Adib Khorram and his new novel, It Had to Be Him. Before we get into that break, I want to share about our travel partner, Travel Marquette. And the reason why is that Marquette, Michigan, as you all have been hearing me say, has become a very special place for me. For the past decade, I've been going to Marquette at least once a year, usually twice a year. And the reason why I love it is I don't have to worry about traveling while queer there, because it's a university town and a super blue city and a reliably blue county with a very active pride organization. Speaking of which, there is the Fall Color Pride Hike on October 12th, where you can go with the Pride organization there and see all of the gorgeous fall colors. And then I will be in Marquette for the Fresh Coast Film Festival the weekend after that. So you can book your trip to Travel Marquette at travelmarquette.com. That's travelmarquette.com, and see the beauties, queer and otherwise, of the Fresh Coast. You're listening to The Gailey Show on AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk. More after this break. Welcome back to The Gailey Show. I am your host, John Parker. We are coming up on the bottom of the hour. It's described as Heartstopper meets Eat, Pray, Love in a swoony, spicy second chance romance. The title is It Had to Be Him. The author, Adib Khorram, who is with me now. And I've just been told in the break that there are signed copies, or may still be signed copies, in Minneapolis at Tropes and Trifles bookstore.
It's true. It's a great romance bookstore in the Twin Cities, and y'all are lucky to have it.
Yes, we are. There's so many great literary things here in Minneapolis that I keep discovering them over and over again. So it's lovely to know that Tropes and Trifles signed copies of It Had to Be Him. Adib, the world is the world right now. So talk to us about writing queer romance.
Oof, boy, that's heavy, isn't it?
Well, we need it, so I want to hear.
I know, right? The world does feel very heavy right now, and I think queer people have always found ways of turning darkness into light, or perhaps even rainbows and a little bit of like a bedazzled jacket type situation. We're living under an administration here in the United States that wants to demonize or erase queer people. And I think art has a really powerful ability to make people see our humanity. And so in some ways, while it is occasionally a joy, occasionally like a really frustrating experience, because writing is hard. But I do feel like, in some ways, it's like my duty, my civic duty as a queer citizen, to be telling queer stories, and in particular to remind queer people that we are deserving and worthy of love and happy endings.
Thank you for that. I think too many people think that all of our art has to be tar. That awful.
I mean, listen, I'm extremely gay, and Kate Blanchett is like, I don't know what it is about her, but I'm like, yes, that also.
That's fair, but that dark, gloomy, like it can't be light. We can't have happy endings. We can't have queer romance. And I'm like, yes, we can. We get to have those things. We deserve those things, and those are just as revolutionary. Probably now more so, right, than ever. Can we talk about, you also covered some
Body dysmorphia.
Thank you. Wow.
It's a tough word, right?
Say that word.
I blame the Greeks.
Dysmorphia. There we go. You cover that. I mean, talking about another heavy topic in there as well. So if folks want to, I don't know how much you want to get into the content of that. So just kind of putting a warning on there for listeners. But talk to me about that type of exploring that topic within this particular construct of a second chance romance.
Sure. Ramin is a gay man, and has had a differently has worn a lot of differently shaped bodies over the course of his life. He's spent time being fat. He's spent time being skinny. He dealt with disordered eating in his youth, and I think that's an experience that's common to a lot of gay men. I think I was in my early 20s when another gay man said to me that straight skinny is gay fat. And I think that's a really toxic attitude that a lot of men in our community have sort of internalized. And I want to show that even though Ramin's like extremely successful, has a wonderful friend group, and in fact has a beautiful man falling in love with him, he still deals with self-doubt. He still deals with body image issues. And even though he's working on it with his therapist, those voices in his head never go away. He just learns not to listen to them. And I think that's been my experience in my own body. And I think that's been the experience of a lot of other queer men and queer people in general. I mean, I've only lived as a cisgender gay man, but queer bodies have always been politicized, policed, and denigrated sometimes, both from without and from within our communities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, for sure. We're here with Adib Khorram, author of the new novel, It Had to Be Him. Something that the characters also talk about is therapy, and they're very upfront about that. And a really good time to be thinking about getting a really good therapist right now. So talk to me about exploring that aspect with both of these characters.
Yeah, I think I grew up and lived with major depressive disorder, so I think therapy has just been part of my life for most of it. And I think it's really important to erase the stigma around therapy and to show, actually, you know what? Therapy helps you become more emotionally healthy. It improves your relationships. Noah talks about like he and his ex-wife did therapy to make sure they could stay friends and be good co-parents to their son, because it was important to them that their son had, two parents that don't hate each other. I think the older I get, the less time I have for crap in my life. Like if there's a problem, I need to solve it. And sometimes therapy is the way to solve that.
Mm-hmm. It's yeah, I grew up in a household where therapy was totally, stigmatized, and finally in my mid-20s, discovered it and went, oh, y'all were wrong.
Right? Actually, talking things through and getting alternate perspectives can help me deal with them. Who could have predicted?
I know, right? And I was like, oh, all y'all are the source of a lot of my problems right now. And then you were trying to prevent me from going to the thing that would have helped me get over that. So yeah, I always get very happy when I see great depictions of therapy in books. And so I was very happy to see those conversations there. I don't want to come back to Italy, but I do want to come back to this idea of, because it happens in the beginning, again, to return to that idea of you're getting dumped for being boring. And I want to explore that kind of idea of, you were mentioning earlier in the first segment of, we don't all have these razzle dazzle jobs. You know what I mean? What is that phrase that I'm blanking on their name. comic from Australia, Nanette.
Oh, I know what you're thinking of, but it cannot summon it to mind either.
They were talking in one of their specials. They were, I think, in Nanette. They're like, "Where is the pride for the people that drink tea?" You know. And so, talk to me, unpack that kind of idea of boring and why you wanted to, what Ramin was really trying to do there in getting to Italy and explore.
Yeah, Ramin was dumped by his boyfriend for being boring because Ramin, has a successful job, but he has not like a rigid life, but he sort of has a routine. He goes and he has dinner with his best friends. He stays in and drinks wine. They go out to restaurants. He does his yoga. He's not out in the club every night. He's not going to the gym. He's not stressed out about almost turning 40 and getting Botox and bleaching his hair. No shade to anyone who does wish to do that. Like, I don't judge. I don't yuck other people's yums. But that's not what Ramin wants. Ramin, at the end of the day, wants to cuddle up with his boyfriend or soon to be husband and like watch a movie and drink a glass of wine. And Todd wants to be in the club. And yeah, I think Ramin had to learn that he's fine just the way he is.
The book is It Had to Be Him. We have links in our show notes and on our website for you to get your own copy. You can connect with Adib at adibkhorram.com, KHORRAM.com. These conversations just go always way too fast, Adib. We'll have to have you back on to keep talking.
I'm always happy to come chat.
All right.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. We're going to talk with Bill Hulseman when we come back. You're listening to The Gailey Show. Coming to you from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and airing on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Welcome back to The Gailey Show. I am your host, John Parker. It is 33 minutes after the hour. Bill Hulseman is a writer, ritual designer, and former educator whose work explores identity, belonging, and personal agency. His debut book, 6 to Carry the Casket and 1 to Say the Mass, is a collection of deeply personal essays examining the identities we inherit, the traditions we navigate, and the power we have to shape our own narratives. A former middle school principal, teacher, and campus minister, Hulseman holds degrees in religious studies, the comparative study of religion, and educational leadership. His writing is informed by this background, as well as his deep love for pop culture, including Madonna and the Golden Girls, who helped him see himself long before the world was ready to. Hi, Bill. Welcome to The Gailey Show.
Thank you, John. I'm so happy to talk to you.
I have to say, the Golden Girls is my ringtone. So we're gonna have to talk about
once upon a time, that was my doorbell. And it was really disconcerting in a party, like people would keep ringing the doorbell, like one after the other. So you'd hear bum, 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 thank you for bum, 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 thank you for bum, bum, bum. Like it would never finish the song because people kept ringing the doorbell.
I would be one of those people like, just let it play.
Exactly.
I gotta hear it. All right. So your debut book. All right. Much of who we are is predetermined before we're even born, right? And so for a lot of people, maybe all people, but queer folks in particular, we find ourselves at some point, whether we're 12 or 62, having to challenge, wrestle, reject, transform that identity. Talk to me about tackling the identities that are birthed upon us.
Sure. I think of identity as a tool, not as a fixed label. And it's a tool to help us know ourselves and help us know each other. It's a tool that we use to construct community. It's a tool that we use to deconstruct community or degrade community too. We use identities as powerful and dangerous tools as well. But it's a tool nonetheless. It's not its own autonomous entity, right? So it's something that is given to us, but any good gift shouldn't be an imposition, right? So I really believe that we can take the reins and we can shape our own identities. And I think, when we're born into a family or a community, we're born into a particular set of identities. And then we find out really early that it doesn't fit, right? I think for queer people especially, we know in our gut at a young age that we're not fitting into the molds that are being presented to us. And instead we're written off, instead of it being sort of a revelation of something new, like, oh, let's figure out who this person is and welcome them totally into the world. And but instead we pigeonhole people, and I think that's to everybody's disadvantage, not just the person who's being pigeonholed. But I really believe that we can take, when we know that the identity isn't serving us, we can shape it, we can create it, we can take the reins. And sometimes that means negotiating language with our families and our friends and our communities. And sometimes it means leaving those people behind, because if they if they want to trap you into a particular identity, then you're trapped, and yeah. So I really believe it's a starting point to know ourselves and to know each other. I also think of identity as an identity as kind of a window. If you're passing by somebody's house and you get to peek in the window, right? And some people leave the windows open and the curtains drawn, and some people have them sealed shut. And it's not my right to pry the window open. It's, if they want to open that window to me, then it's my privilege to be able to peek in and get a glimpse into the person. So I think it's not just a matter of what do we do with the identities that were handed to us. It's what is identity in general, and where did they come from? They don't just come out of the blue as a fixed robe that you put on and wear for the rest of your life. Identities grow from our experiences. They grow out of our relationships. They grow out of our values. And those evolve over time. And so why wouldn't our identities as well?
Mm-hmm. I can't imagine that you were thinking about the current political landscape that we find ourselves in as the LGBTQ community as you were writing the book. But it seems so timely to what we're facing as a community from the administration, from the MAGA party writ large. How do you feel your book speaks to this particular moment that we're in?
I hope it speaks to this particular moment. The third part of the book, so the book is divided into three parts. And the first two parts, I dive into the experiences and the relationships that really shaped me and that continue to shape me. And I wanted to go back and understand, how I got here. And then, I started writing in 2020, and then 2020 happened, right? And I wanted to understand how we all got here. Mm-hmm. And so looking through my own experiences, it's a very narrow lens, but I think I was able to identify a lot of common experiences. And I'm really lucky that I grew up with the tools for reflection, and that I love making meaning out of things. And I think that's something that I was trying to do. And I looked around and I saw a lot of people not knowing what to do with the experiences we were all sharing in 2020. But one of the third part of the book I call Pride, and it's a little bit different. Each essay focuses on a different person or a book or a movie or a TV show that helped me shape my queer identity, right? So growing up, I didn't have any vocabulary. I didn't have any language to understand myself. I didn't have anybody in my family or in my immediate community who was queer or that I knew was queer. Mm-hmm. So I had no language for it. So I was kind of lost. But then once in a while, you come across something and I would see myself reflected in it. The Golden Girls were one of those. I saw them as a chosen family. They're not a biological family dealing with those complications. They're a chosen family dealing with their own particular complications. And I remember as a kid thinking like, that's a cool way to be, like living with your best friends. Isn't that a different way to live? I don't have to be, get married and have 2.2 children. But when it comes to, and of course, Madonna was another one that even the first time I saw Madonna, I think it was the Open Your Heart video on like the local music video hour after school. I was in like 4th grade, and Open Your Heart came on, and there was something about that I was like, I she gets me. Like she gets me. And there's that little boy who dances with her in the video, and it's a whole metaphor, But I always saw myself in that little kid. Like, I want to be that kid. Not I want to be Madonna. I want to be that kid who's like besties with Madonna and dancing off with her into the sunset, But the third part of the book wasn't intended just to celebrate like lots of queer resources. It was my way of making pride personal. I think one of the challenges that we're facing as a queer community now is that our primary celebrations, the big, pride festivals, Pride Month of June, and throughout the summer, all these festivals all over, in the last decade have really become dominated by corporate sponsors.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2019, which is the 50th anniversary of Stonewall, and 2020, which is the 50th anniversary of the first Pride March, I was walking through the mall and it was just rainbows everywhere, right? Everybody had rainbow branded to show that they were queer friendly, and it felt really, really hollow. I mean, it was, talk about performative solidarity. Because now, a couple years later, now look what's happened to Pride, just in this past year with the corporate sponsorships pulling out. I think that's actually a good thing, because then it's fine. Let's get back to basics. What is Pride really about? For me, I wanted to make Pride personal. I wanted to step away from the corporate sponsorship. I didn't want commercials on television to tell me how to feel about being a gay man and how I should be feeling walking down the street, right? That's for me to figure out and for me to discern. So I started a daily practice during Pride Month of, I'd set some time apart each day and think about a person or a movie or a book that was really formative for me, that I keep coming back to, or that I read over and over again, or that planted a seed in me that I didn't understand until I was, out and loud and proud and all that later on. So I wanted to make Pride personal, and I think that's a challenge for all of us to figure out, like, how do we reclaim what pride means? And, whether it's, for me, it's a protest, or if it's a demonstration, or if it's a matter of personal reflection and personal evolution, right? I think everybody's got different goals. But the way forward for me is personalizing it, taking it out of the hands of the corporate sponsors, taking it out of the hands of, capitalism, and then, make it personal, make it our own again.
We're here with Bill Hulseman, author of 6 to Carry the Casket and 1 to Say the Mass: Reflections on Life, Identity, and Moving Forward. I think that for a lot of people, particularly those who are working within the corporations, trying to get them to be more inclusive of like employee policies and health benefits. And, I think that there was the sense of, we live in capitalism, and if we're getting these Fortune 500s, if we're getting these Fortune 1000s to finally, be there, then maybe we've turned the corner. And I think it took all of our breaths away of how performative it actually was, that in a single year, they could all just yank that back, and that they hadn't actually changed at all.
Yeah,
that was and I'm thinking particularly of you, Target, headquartered here in the Twin Cities, that a lot of people have been working them for a very long time, 10 years. And the fact that they just walked away from that so quickly, and they still got sued by MAGA. But you see, I get started on that, and that's not what we're here to talk about.
It's all connected.
It's all connected. There is a idea that you also explore in the book about feeling ornamental in a big family. Unpack that for us.
I am the youngest of 10 children. A nice big Irish Catholic family from Chicago, but I had a unique experience of being both part of a huge family and also kind of having an only child experience, because the first 9 within my family were born within 11 years of each other. I mean, my mother was just pushing them out, and 1 a year. And then there was a long gap, and there was a 7-year gap, and then I came along. So, some people would be like, "Oh, you were a mistake." I said, "No, I'm a delightful surprise." And so I had this unique experience of both being part of this huge brood and having the big family experience, but also I was kind of an only child. By the time I was, in grade school and middle school, all my older siblings were out of the house, unless they'd come home between apartments, or if they were moving, they'd come back for a couple months or something. But I was the last one at home for a long time. So I had a really different relationship with my parents. I had a really different relationship with them. You know, by the time I was born and by the time I was conscious, the family culture was already set. You know, the first 9 and my parents, you know, the dynamic was set. And so by the time I showed up, it was just a matter of catching up and trying to keep up with everybody. The word ornamental is, it doesn't, I don't mean to say I was systematically excluded. It's just I was peripheral. You know, I was on the side. And as a kid, or even as a high school student and a college student, if I said something within the, you know, when the whole family was together, a couple of people would look at me like, where did he come from? Like, who is that? I was like, well, if you had taken time to get to know me, maybe you'd understand.
Wow.
I have something to contribute. You know, and I think that's pretty typical with a lot of big families. You know, and the older siblings, you know, have a really different perspective on younger siblings. But younger siblings, we see everything. We learn from all the mistakes of the older siblings. We learn from all of the successes of the older siblings. In particular, we learn how to, you know, navigate tricky relationships within the family. And so I learned that from my siblings for sure. But I'm not sure what they ever wanted to learn from me. And I always felt like I wasn't being tapped. Like, please help. Please let me contribute.
We are talking with Bill Hulseman, author of 6 to Carry the Casket and 1 to Say the Mass. I have to fit in a break here. We're going to have more with Bill when we come back. You can keep the conversation going and follow us on Blue Sky. We're at thegailyshow.org on Blue Sky. Be sure to sign up for AM 950 Radio's newsletter. Go to am950radio.com, scroll to the bottom of the page, and sign up for more from The Gailey Show and all of AM 950 shows. You are listening to AM 950 KTNF and WCPT 820. Welcome back to the Gailey Show. We are coming up on the top of the hour. I am John Parker. I'm here with Bill Hulseman, author of 6 to Carry the Casket and 1 to Say the Mass, Reflections on Life, Identity, and Moving Forward. It is in bookstores now. Something I want to ask you about, because we talk a lot about it on the show. And you, as a former campus, minister, and you've studied, religion, and you have degrees in it. Something we talk about on the show a lot is Christian nationalism. Can you talk to us about, because you have a lot of things in here that are pushing back on that. So maybe we can get your thoughts on Christian nationalism, but more within the context of your book and the reflection and the meditations that you offer to the readers as they're going through it.
I'm glad you qualified that, because I'd have to run off and quick do a PhD in Christian nationalism and come back and feel qualified to talk about that. But I can talk about, from my own experience and my own studies and my own teaching. One of the really big pieces of my academic background was studying the Holocaust and the history of anti-Semitism. That, the Holocaust didn't just come out of Nazi Germany. The Holocaust was the result of 2,000 years of systematic choices that marginalized groups of people. And it snowballed. And, at first it was religious identities that turned into racial identities when race became a construct that was a dominant in the vocabulary. And a key piece of understanding how the Holocaust happened too was how the Nazis were able to tap into that same sense of Christian nationalism in Germany. It tapped into really deeply rooted prejudices, and it doesn't just come out of a generation, right? We inherit those prejudices and we inherit the trauma of the generations before us. So I can only see, the rise of Christian nationalism in the U.S. as a parallel to what we saw, in Germany and in Europe in the 1920s and 30s. I think what's most devastating for me is to think I did my degrees in this. I spent how long teaching and really intentionally laying groundwork for my students to be able to respond to things like this. respond with compassion, respond with love, respond with a search for justice. And I'm a pluralist. I don't believe there's one right way to do anything. I think there are a lot of right ways to do things. And the job of society is for us to figure out how do we coexist and respect each other's boundaries without dominating them. And right now, I'm in a radical minority. Both people on the right and people on the left are taking really extreme views. Yeah, there's Christian nationalism on one side, but then there's also a really radical tribalism that's happening on the left too. Neither of those is a starting point toward peace for me. Neither of those is a starting point toward really a civil democratic society for me. I taught, I did a unit on, on genocide with my students for many years. And my goal wasn't to show, hey, this happened in the past. Isn't that interesting? My goal was to say, this comes up every generation. We see it in multiple places around the world. This is a human phenomenon. Why do we keep letting it happen? We know it's happening. When it comes to Christian nationalism, what I think is, it plays a part in that because it so blindly pushes aside the Christian part and prioritizes the nationalism part. Mm-hmm. I don't know how Christians claim to... I don't know how Christians claim this is a legitimate approach. There's nothing in Scripture. There's nothing in church teaching. Well, it depends on the church, I guess. There's nothing in my church's teachings that would suggest that like a unified Christian nationalism that not only holds power, but also marginalizes others. I don't understand how that emerges. I really don't understand how that emerges. In the history of Christianity, for example, the history of Christianity and Judaism, they were both marginalized fledgling traditions, in their early, until the second or third century. They were being persecuted systematically. And now, and it didn't take long once Christianity became the religion of the empire under Constantine. All of a sudden, Jews were the only radical minority within the empire, and so they became, the target for a couple thousand years. I feel like in the 80s and 70s, we saw the language popping up, not necessarily just against Jews, but against queer people. We saw, the rise of Anita Bryant. That's sort of an interesting marker to think about. She was able to be so vocal and so anti-queer. But that was the stirrings, right? It was happening. It was bubbling up from that part of the culture, and we saw it happening. And why didn't we do anything? Why didn't we respond effectively? Or why didn't the people in the middle, or why didn't people of real faith and religious conviction, why didn't they throw their foot down and say, no, absolutely not? I don't try to speak out against non-Catholics because I grew up in the Catholic tradition, and that's where I really claim. If I claim any authority on religion, it's within the Catholic tradition. And it's particularly scandalous to me what elected Catholic leaders have done, and appointed Catholic leaders. Think about who are the Catholics on the Supreme Court who are letting civil rights, which is civil rights is not a non-Christian thing. Civil rights is a very Christian thing. But here we've got elected and appointed people who are just trampling.
They are, and I cannot believe we're at our time already. I want to keep going. The book is 6 to Carry the Casket and 1 to Say the Mass, Reflections on Life, Identity, and Moving Forward. We have links in our show notes and on our website for you to get your own copy at am950radio.com or heartlandsignal.com. You can connect with Bill at billhulseman.com, HULSEMAN.com. Bill, we're going to have you come back and talk some more here because there's so much to unpack. And I mean that for real. We're going to have make that happen.
I look forward to it.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening and or watching today. You can keep the gay going on all weekend long. On Saturday afternoon on AM 950, you can catch Twin Cities Pride Amplified at 3 p.m., The Illegal Trans Woman at 4 p.m., and The Downright Upright Show with Philip Anthony at 5 p.m. On Sunday at 11 a.m., tune in to WCPT 820 for Out Chicago. It's Sunday brunch with your gay best friends, Ella Miller and Scott Duff. Have a great weekend, everybody. See you back here on Monday, and keep it queer until then.